It's 20,000 years ago. It's dark, it's freezing, and something is watching your camp from the tree line. Yellow eyes. It's a wolf, a real one, all muscle and teeth, the kind that can crack a deer's leg bone like a breadstick. You do not want it closer. And yet somehow some version of that animal ends up sleeping at your feet, warm, snoring, and named something like Good Boy. So how did our ancestors take the scariest predator in the forest and turn it into a pet? Here's the honest answer. They probably didn't. Not the way you're picturing it. Some brave soul scooping up a wolf pup and raising it by the fire like a furry little project. That story is everywhere. It's in cartoons, it's in documentaries, it's the version most of us just quietly assume is true. And the more scientists dig into it, the more backwards it looks. Because the best evidence we have says the first dogs weren't really tamed by us at all. They kind of tamed themselves. Stay with me, because once you see how it actually happened, you'll never look at your dog the same way again. So let's kill the wolf pup story first because it doesn't hold up. Picture actually trying it. You walk up to a wild wolf den, guarded by parents who hunt bison for a living, and you steal a baby. Assuming you survive that, you now own a tiny predator. Cute for about 3 weeks. Then it grows up. And here's the thing people forget. A wolf, raised entirely by humans, bottle-fed from day one, hand-socialized, loved to bits, still turns into a wolf. Researchers have done exactly this. They raise wolf pups around the clock, treat them like puppies. The wolves stay wary. They don't take orders. They don't really care what you want. At 6 or 7 weeks old, a puppy is still busy falling in love with everything. A wolf that age is already deciding what to be afraid of, and mostly, that's you. So taming one wolf, one time, might be possible if you're very patient and slightly insane. But taming enough of them, generation after generation, to make a whole new species? Not like that. The math doesn't work. Whatever turned wolves into dogs, it wasn't a caveman with a soft heart and a spare rabbit. Okay, this is where it gets weird. To understand what did happen, you have to take a detour to Siberia. The 1950s. A Soviet scientist named Dmitry Belyaev starts an experiment that sounds boring and turns out to be one of the coolest things anyone's ever done with animals. He takes silver foxes, farm foxes, bred for their fur, definitely not pets, and he does just one thing. He picks the friendliest ones. Not the smartest, not the prettiest. Just whichever foxes are a little less likely to bite the hand feeding them. Those foxes get to have babies. The bitey ones don't. Then he does it again and again. That's the whole experiment. Every generation breed the calmest, tolerate humans' best foxes, and watch what happens. What happens is wild. Within a handful of generations, a few decades, not thousands of years, the foxes start to change. And not just their temper. Their ears go floppy. Their tails start to curl and wag. They get patches of white fur, like little tuxedo markings. Some of them start to bark. He bred for one thing, chill, and a whole starter pack of dog came along for the ride. Floppy ears, spotty coats, faces that stay puppyish into adulthood. Scientists call this bundle the domestication syndrome, which sounds like a disease but really just means turn the friendliness dial and a pile of other stuff moves with it. Now, fair warning, some researchers have poked holes in the details lately, arguing those farm foxes were already a bit tame to start with. So take the exact timeline with a pinch of salt. But the core lesson holds, and it's the key to the whole mystery. You don't have to select for 100 dog traits to make a dog. You select for one. Friendliness. Everything else tags along. Which raises an obvious question. If friendliness is the switch, who was flipping it for those first wolves? And the answer is nobody. That's the part nobody puts in the textbooks. Rewind to your camp 20-odd thousand years ago. You're a hunter-gatherer. You kill things, you butcher them, you leave scraps, bones, guts, the parts nobody wants. That pile of leftovers is to a hungry wolf a glowing neon sign. Free food, no chasing required. But there's a catch. To eat from the human buffet, a wolf has to do the one thing wolves hate most. Get close to humans. Most of them can't. They're too nervous. The second you move, they bolt. But every population has a few weirdos. The bold ones, the ones with a slightly shorter fuse on their panic. Those wolves can hang back just far enough to grab a rib bone and survive the experience. And here's the quiet magic of it. The calm wolves eat better. Eating better means more surviving pups. More surviving pups means more calm wolves next year. Nobody chose them. Nobody bred them. The garbage pile did the choosing, one nervous meal at a time. This is the idea a lot of researchers now lean toward, and it's got a great name: survival of the friendliest. The wolves that could stand us out ate the wolves that couldn't. Over many generations, that friendly fringe drifted further from the wild pack and closer to the fire, until one day they weren't quite wolves anymore. To be clear, this is still a hypothesis, a strong one, but nobody has a time machine, so we're reading it backwards from bones and DNA. Think of it less like adoption and more like the world's slowest, most one-sided friendship, where the dog showed up uninvited and just never left, which, if you own one, tracks. So the first dogs may have basically applied for the job themselves. But why did we keep them around? What was in it for us? Let that sit for a second, because the deal that came next changed both species forever. Because this was a deal, a weird, unspoken, mutually useful deal. From your side of the fire, a pack of half-tame wolf dogs hanging around camp is surprisingly handy. They hear things you can't, they smell things you can't. When a bigger predator creeps toward your kids in the dark, they lose their minds about it, which is a terrible night's sleep and an excellent early warning system. Free security, runs on scraps. Then there's the hunt. An animal that can track by scent and run down prey is a real upgrade to a human hunting party. You bring the planning and the pointy sticks. They bring the nose and the speed. Together, you catch food neither of you gets alone. And there's the plain, unglamorous matter of warmth. A freezing night with no blanket and no heating for another few thousand years? A big warm animal curled against your back isn't a luxury. It's survival. There's an old phrase for it: a 3-dog night. A night so cold you needed 3 of them just to keep from freezing. So the wolves get steady food and a safer place to raise pups. The humans get an alarm system, a hunting partner, and a living hot water bottle. Nobody signed anything. Nobody planned it. 2 species just slowly worked out they were worth more together than apart. And the longer they spent by our fire, the more something started to shift in them. Not just their bodies, but the way they watched us. Here's the part that catches people off guard. Somewhere along the line, dogs learn to read us. Try this at home. Point at something across the room, and your dog looks where you're pointing. Sounds trivial. It isn't. That's a genuinely hard trick. Most animals have no clue what a pointing finger means. Even chimps, who are frighteningly clever, mostly don't get it. Puppies do, almost from the start, with barely any training. They're wired to track where your attention goes. And wolves, even wolves raised by people, are much worse at it. Then there's the face. Scientists found that dogs have a small muscle around their eyes that wolves basically don't. A muscle that lifts the inner eyebrow and makes that irresistible, slightly sad, please expression. You know the one. The one that has separated you from a piece of chicken you had absolutely no intention of sharing. And that look may not be an accident. The idea goes that over thousands of years, the dogs whose faces tugged hardest at human hearts got fed more, got kept more, got to raise more puppies. Which means, without ever meaning to, we bred them to be adorable at us. Your dog's guilt-trip stare is a piece of engineering, and you are both the engineer and the sucker. And it runs deeper than a cute face. When a dog and its person just look into each other's eyes, both of their brains release a small dose of oxytocin, the bonding chemical that spikes between a mother and her newborn. The same loop that glues a parent to a baby now runs between a person and a completely different animal. Which raises a strange thought. If living beside us reshaped them, from the inside out, did living beside them do anything to us? Here's a thought that sounds like science fiction and is taken seriously by real researchers. We might be a little self-domesticated too. Look at our species next to our older relatives, the Neanderthals, the earlier humans. Compared to them, we've got a flatter face, smaller brow ridges, a slightly smaller skull. Softer features, basically. And here's the eerie part. Those are some of the exact same changes you see when a wild animal turns tame. The same starter pack as those Siberian foxes. The leading idea is that at some point, being the most aggressive guy in the group stopped paying off. The humans who could cooperate, share, tolerate strangers, work in bigger groups without constantly killing each other, did better. So in a sense, we bred ourselves for friendliness, the same way the garbage pile bred the wolves. Survival of the friendliest all over again. Except this time we were both the wolves and the campfire. And some researchers think our partnership with dogs gave us a real edge. One idea, and it's a debated one, so hold it loosely, is that back when our species overlapped with the Neanderthals, dogs helped us hunt better, track wounded prey, and guard our camps. Better hunting, safer nights, more surviving kids. It's not the whole reason we're still here, and they aren't. Nothing about that story is simple. But a hunting partner with a nose like a superpower certainly didn't hurt. Two self-taming species, teaming up, right at the moment it mattered most. Okay, let's talk about when all this happened, and brace yourself for the least satisfying answer in the whole story. We don't fully know. The oldest bones scientists agree, hands down, belong to a real dog and not a wolf. Those are somewhere around 14 to 16,000 years old. Solid ground, everybody nods. But then you bring in DNA. When researchers use genetics to estimate how long ago dogs and wolves split, a kind of molecular stopwatch that counts tiny changes in the genetic code over time, the numbers jump way back. Some studies say 20,000 years. Some say closer to 40,000. And they can't agree on where it happened either. Europe, Central Asia, and East Asia have all been nominated. A few researchers even think it might have happened twice, in two different places, which would mean dogs were such a good idea that humans invented them more than once. So the honest summary is this. Somewhere between roughly 15 and 40,000 years ago, in a place we haven't pinned down, maybe more than once, not a clean date. But that mess is the truth. And I'd rather hand you the fog than a fake number that sounds confident and happens to be wrong. Now here's a fact that is rock solid, and it's easy to walk right past. The wolf is the only large meat-eating predator our species has ever truly domesticated. Look at the guest list. Sheep, goats, cows, pigs, prey animals, every one. Things that already lived in herds and mostly wanted to eat grass and not you. And then there's the dog, the one animal on that list that could, and occasionally still can, kill a person. We looked at the top predator of the northern forest, the thing that used to hunt us, and somehow ended up sharing our dinner and our bed with it. No other dangerous carnivore made the cut. Not lions, not bears, just wolves. And the reason it worked comes down to something buried in their DNA. Scientists have found that the friendliest dogs carry changes in one particular stretch of DNA, and the same stretch, in humans, is tied to a rare condition called Williams-Buren syndrome. People who have it tend to be extraordinarily warm, trusting, socially fearless, the kind of person who treats a stranger like a friend they just haven't met yet. In dogs, changes in that same neighborhood of genes seem to crank up the urge to be near us, to look to us, to bond. Put simply, part of what makes a dog may be a genetic nudge toward loving people. That's not something we drilled into them at the end. It might be the very thing that started the partnership. The reason those bold wolves could sit by the fire in the first place. Which brings us to a grave in Germany. Around 14,000 years ago, a puppy was buried there, tucked in beside two adult humans. And when scientists looked closely at its teeth, they found a small, quiet heartbreak. That puppy had been gravely sick. It fought off several rounds of a brutal illness we'd now call distemper, a virus that kills most of the puppies it touches. A sick puppy like that can't hunt, can't guard, can't do a single useful thing. It needs weeks of care, feeding, cleaning, warming, holding on. And the only way it survived as long as it did is that somebody gave it exactly that. Somebody who got nothing back. Let that sit for a second. 14,000 years ago, before farms, before cities, before writing, a group of people looked at a small, dying, completely useless animal and decided it was worth keeping warm. Then they buried it like family. That isn't a working relationship. That's love. And it's some of the oldest evidence of it we've ever pulled out of the ground. So the next time your dog does something ridiculous, loses its mind over the doorbell, protects you from a plastic bag, refuses to sleep anywhere but jammed against your spine, remember where all of it comes from. That's not random. That's 20,000 years of a deal you never signed. The alarm system, the hunting partner, the warmth on a freezing night. It's all still in there, running quietly under the fur. We didn't conquer the wolf. We met it halfway. The bold ones came to our fire, the soft ones stayed. And somewhere in all those long, cold nights, a predator and a primate decided to trust each other. And they never really stopped. 300,000 years later, you're still doing it. Funny how that works. So here's what I want to know. If you'd been sitting at that fire 20,000 years ago, and a bold, hungry wolf crept just close enough to the light, would you have shared your dinner or reached for a rock? Tell me in the comments.